What's up, everybody? Welcome to On Tap. I'm Kevin, your host. You can join me every Thursday for just enough, but not too much of the good stuff. And this Thursday, I am joined by the lovely Candace Miller. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What are you drinking?
I got a little pear cider. It's called Kiss.
It looks like a tall pear cider, not a little pear cider.
Yeah, it's a tall boy, I'd
Yeah,
say.
that's good. You know what you can drink after that? Candace agreed that she would shotgun this growler on the show for us, so.
Hey, first time for everything, so I might as
Why
well.
don't you get her a straw there, producer? She can chug that one down. I'm just kidding. We're not making you do that. This is empty anyway. I already drank it. So I invited Candace to be with us today because she seems interesting, and I think she has interesting things to say. So why don't you share a little bit with the people, like your background, give us like the super microwave story of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I was a high school teacher and guidance counselor.
We're gonna come back to that.
For several years. I taught at Joliet West and Joliet Central High School. Loved it, had an amazing experience there. And after we had our second child, I just kind of decided, my husband and I collectively decided that I was gonna stay home and raise some babies. So I did that, and which I loved. And it's a great time spending, 7 straight years home with 3 children under the age of 4. But
the only person who can say that is who has some distance from it. It was a great time.
It really was. I mean,
with the children.
It was such a blessing. I will 100% say it was such a blessing. But after a few months, I quickly realized I could only do crafts with a 2-year-old for so long, and I needed a little bit of something. So in the meantime, I always enjoyed party planning and event planning. So I kind of took that side hobby and turned it into a little bit of a side business. So I did that, which was fantastic. I got to plan weddings and birthday parties and showers and all kinds of things. I didn't really have too many bridezillas.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have any groomzillas? Is that a thing, groomzilla?
No, I had a couple really laid back brides that was a little bit more difficult because
what's a laid back bride?
Didn't care about anything.
Oh, sure.
So, which is great, but at the same time, it's no, we really need to make some decisions.
Yeah.
Do
you just have to take
your
over at
wedding
that
is
point?
in 3 months. We need to decide what colors and if you're going to have flowers or not.
That's right.
Yeah. So sometimes I just kind of took over and I was like, well, I think this looks great.
That's right.
And they said, sure, let's do it.
Oh my gosh.
So
well, you're lucky you missed the bridezilla thing then.
Yeah, I am pretty lucky. So I did that for a couple of years while I was home, and then. My husband and I just kind of jumped into Parkview and kind of dove feet first when we launched over at New Lenox and got really involved in groups and all those kinds of things, coaching, everything that goes along with small groups. And in true Parkview fashion, one day was kind of shoulder tapped by Richie and Adam over there.
Do you guys know who Richie is? If you don't, you need to go back and watch this episode, this conversation I had with him. So we'll put a little link up there for you. Wild man over there in New Lenox.
Yeah.
And Adam, too. He covered for me a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
he did a good job. He couldn't even say the name of the show right. So called it Untapped.
Pretty cool guys. So
great guys. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they kind of shoulder tapped me, and I'm not going to lie, because I enjoyed planning and kind of decorating and all those kinds of things, I thought that they were going to ask me to come and decorate the church for Christmas, because this was August, and Parkview really plans ahead. So I was like, okay. They're like, hey, we have this job that we're creating, and we just really think that you would be a great fit for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. Give me some trees, I'll throw them up, I'll put some lights up and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, all right, well, we'll send you the job description. And I was like, okay. So the next morning I get it, and it was for, associate groups pastor. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
Well, that's not decorating the church. So
it's not decoration pastor.
No. But so here I am. And 2 years later, I said yes. And
you're a pastor.
And I'm a pastor now.
Wow. So do you have people call you reverend?
No.
Minister?
No.
They couldn't call you father, that wouldn't they?
No, sister.
Sister Candace.
Sister Candace.
Sister Father Candace.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, let's go back to the high school thing though.
Yeah.
Do you have any standout high school student stories that you can share with us?
Absolutely.
The more obnoxious, slightly crude, the better?
Okay, so this is really just me gonna just lay it all out there. So I was blessed with a student, and I will not say his last name, but his name was James. And James struggled a little bit with social awareness and some social cues. But he, for some reason, really gravitated towards me. He kind of gave a lot of the other teachers a really hard time. But he told me that I have an aura about me. So when he was in my class, he was great. He asked a lot of questions, so I usually had to limit his questions to about 3 per class period. And so one day he had already asked his 2 questions and his hand rose up again, and we're only like maybe 10 or 12 minutes into the class. And so I kindly reminded him like, James, this is it. We've got like 40 minutes left and you're asking your last question. So he's like, that's okay, miss, that's okay. And they never called me by my last name. It was always miss. So he's like, but I need you to come over here. So I did. I walked over to him and he's like, no, get closer, get closer. So I'm like crouching down, and he looks at me and he thinks that he's whispering, and being very subtle. Mind you, the whole class is silent because they're just like, what is going to happen here? So he tells me, he is like face to face with me. And he's like, I think before the other kids start making fun of you, you need to go home tonight and shave your mustache. And I was like, note taken. All right, sounds good. And I mean, you could hear a pin drop because nobody knew what to do or what to say. They didn't know if they should laugh, but I just turned my back and I'm like dying of laughter because how do you not laugh? And I was like, all right, sounds good. So I was told I had to shave my mustache once. That was awesome.
Oh my gosh. What did you do?
I went home and I bought what's called a tinkle razor, and it's like for a female, like you're supposed to like shave your eyebrows and stuff. And here we are.
Oh my gosh.
It's the best $4 I've ever spent.
This episode has been sponsored by Tinkle Razor.
That's
for
perfect.
When your students say, shave your mustache.
Yeah. So that was probably one of the most,
Oh, that's fantastic.
yeah.
What did you tell your husband?
I told him the story,
and he said,
he's in education too.
Oh.
So,
That'll
it's
do it.
like, this is like nothing.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty vulnerable moment there.
Oh my gosh.
But it was,
that's great.
Good times. I had another student brought a dead rabbit to school in her backpack and took it out in class. So
took it out in class.
Well, was showing everyone during class, and I noticed everyone was in the back corner. I'm like, hey, what's going on back there? And they're like, we got a situation, miss. So I went back there, and there was a dead bunny in the backpack. So we went down to the counselor's office, and we're like, we're going to go right downstairs.
Wait a second, let me shave my mustache and take care of this.
First, let me take care of my facial hair, then we're going to go see the counselor.
And we'll deal with the rabbit. What? Oh my gosh, that is so great.
Yeah.
Can I just say, God bless you, educators. People who had to teach kids, elected to keep their jobs in the last 2 years. God bless you. Thanks for doing what you do because of things like this. You get up every day and don't know if you're going to find a dead rabbit in the backpack.
Right.
Kudos to you.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. Cheers to you, educators of the world. We drink to you today.
Yeah.
Well, let's super crazy switch gears here.
Sure.
So back to the pastor thing. So we talked about this a little bit before, and I asked you if it was cool if we talked about it, and you said, sure. So here we are talking about it.
Okay.
So you are a woman, right?
Yes.
And also a pastor, which unfortunately in the history of Christian church things has not always been an accepted practice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's not been. And people have taken a lot of issue with this over the years, and still there's a lot of debates about whether or not women should be pastors. Can women teach people things about the Bible, which I think is nonsense in a non-debate, but it still is. How have you, living in that world now, obviously you were in education, wedding planning, those are just different industries. Mm-hmm. Being in the religious church industry now, in sort of on the front edge of job, a kind of job that exists, what has it been like for you?
Yeah. So
Do you need to take a drink before you
Maybe.
answer the question?
Do you have another one?
Yeah.
Well, I will be, if I'm totally honest, until I took this role, I've never experienced that, like, because you're a woman, ... Until I came into full-time ministry. So it was kind of eye-opening to me. It was a little bit of like a punch in the gut because I just didn't. I know that there's always been these conversations, but I've never experienced it. So you just like to think like at a church like Parkview that, you know, has so many different people coming in from so many different backgrounds. And we very much are a come as you are type of church, that wouldn't be an issue. But it has been a little bit of an issue around, you know, with people that I've known for several years. People that are very, very close to me have made some comments about how they're not sure if they're comfortable with me being a pastor. So it was a little bit of a reality check. And at times it really kind of makes you just doubt, like, oh, should I be doing this? Like, is this, am I in the right place? And I say that because for about 2 years, 2.5 years or so before I took this job, I wrestled with God daily on where I was supposed to go next. So when my youngest was in preschool and I knew that in a couple of years he would be in full-time school and all 3 of my kids would be in school, I really wrestled with God of like, hey, what's next for me? Where do you need me? Where's my next chapter? Is it back in the classroom? Is it counseling? Is it full-time party planning? You know, all of those things that I enjoy doing. Is it working at Pottery Barn in the mall so I can get a discount? Like, sign me up, I'm in. But nothing quite felt right. And then when I was shoulder tapped for this position, I just, like, it was like a light bulb because I'm like, this is a total God thing because this isn't something that I've ever pursued for myself or ever really imagined myself into formal ministry. I always kind of used my public education and, you know, just experience in, you know, out in the secular world, if you will, as like my mission field, but never really thought that this is where I would be in my life. So it definitely kind of made you doubt a little bit of like, oh, is this where I'm supposed to be? Yeah. So it's still something that I kind of grapple with a little bit.
I could imagine because you're there to do what you feel like you're called to do. Like you feel like this is like I'm riding this wave into the next chapter of life.
Yeah.
And the challenges with taking on something new are already, it's already hard enough to start something new and to make a shift into a different, you know, mode of work, family, our marriages are affected by new jobs and things like that, and in good and challenging ways. And then to have this, like the gallery around it has got to be really frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you manage that?
Well, I am the oldest of 3 girls. And so I think my parents, my parents did a great job, and especially my dad, of raising us like we were the sons that he never had, right? So we just kind of, there was no like clear-cut, quote-unquote, gender roles necessarily for us. You know, so like we would be out mowing the lawn, and he'd always had a side business of landscaping and like laying pavers and stuff, and we were his workers. Like we went and dug holes and we carted pavers to the back and things. And then when I got to high school and I was really involved in our youth group in high school, I was actually blessed with a female youth pastor, which back in the 90s at a Reformed church was a big deal. So, right? And so she was awesome, and just kind of using that as a role model. And one thing though that has really stood with me is I've had some of this, you know, let's say naysayers or, you know, people that are questioning if I can do this. But on the other hand, I have had more people come up to me and say, we just want to thank you for, you know, being in this position in ministry because you are a role model to our daughters that they now can go into ministry. And when you look at it that way, like, whew, no pressure, Candace, don't screw anything up. But that outweighs the, are you sure you can do this because you're a woman? Like, yes, I can do this because I'm a woman, because God put me here. So
Yeah.
that's kind of all I, shut that down real quick.
That's good though, because I would imagine it could go to really dark places and like derail you from what you're there to do.
Yeah.
Because the other leaders that I've talked to who are, women who are pastors will say, for the most part, like, I'm not here to like change the world.
Right.
Like, I didn't get into this to make a stand about like women should be leaders in the church, and that's why I'm doing it. Like, they're doing it because they love people, they love encouraging other people, and they're gifted in that way. Someone noticed their gifting, and they're just walking this path.
Yeah.
That if it reverberates in a wider way, either to the negative for some people or to the positive, then that's whatever, because that's just noise.
Yeah.
Because they've got to stay on track.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many people, myself included, we can get thrown off what we're there to do when we listen to the gallery and to the people who would kind of cherry pick and, armchair quarterback our lives and what we're doing.
Yeah.
And they're not having to do it themselves, so they don't really know.
Right.
They don't know the path we have to walk, and no one knows your path but you in that way. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
And I think one thing that like my husband and I are really intentional about, like, teaching our children, because the culture has this mentality of, like, you could be anything you want to be, and that's wonderful, right? You can really,
right.
But something that we just really try to instill in them is like, go boldly into what God has created you to be. Not what culture or society is telling you that you should be because you are a woman or a man, or you like sports, or you're musically inclined, or anything like that. But like, it takes courage and humility to really lean into what God has created you to do and to follow that. And I just feel like, that's why I'm here, because I love Jesus and I love people, and it's kind of as easy as that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you are a great example, because, I think, being like, just like what you said, like, I know what I'm here to do and what I'm not here to do, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's not I think for a lot of people, it can just, why they are doing what they're doing and where they're at can get really complicated, or maybe they don't even know the answer to that. Like, they don't know why they're showing up to work. They don't know, other than it's a job, and they don't know why they're engaging in family activities and events, or even their own family at home, other than it's my family and I have to do it. So to have like a bigger reason to show up than just, I'm here because I just kind of fell into this, I think is really, I think a lot of people are missing that, and I think even if we have it, sometimes we can lose it. We can start in a place where we're like, I know why I'm here. I know what I want to do, where I want to be in my life. And then stuff happens, and then we're like, I don't think I know anymore.
Right.
So what would you say to that person who's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here, and I don't know why I'm showing up in my life. I don't know what the purpose of me working this job is, or being with this family, or engaged in these friendships or whatever. What would you say to that person who's kind of experiencing maybe some of that post-COVID like dysphoria, like, what even is my life? Got any advice?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Here, go ahead.
I might need this first. I think especially emerging out of this last year, right? Like, I feel like this last year for a lot of people put maybe a lot of things into perspective that they never really thought about before. But, I think I struggled with that a little bit of like, okay, God, instead of like, why am I here? Like, what can you use me for? So even if it's in a job, or you're in a friendship that you're not quite sure, maybe it's not going how you want it to go, or maybe it's not bringing you joy. Instead of asking like, why what's next for me? Like, God, how can you use me right here in this? Like, you know, why am I in this friendship? Why am I in this relationship with this person? Because there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't see that reason while we're in it. And it's usually
It's true.
kind of after you're out of it or you've worked through something, you're like, oh, there it is. Like, that's why I was there.
Yeah.
So really just, I mean, as cliche as it sounds, but it's really just leaning into God and just knowing that you are exactly where He wants you to be. If it is something that, you know, you're following His lead on. Because we can make choices and be a place that we probably shouldn't be, but, you know, never doubting that He's not going to do something in any situation that we're in. He's always going to use your situation for something.
Well, thank you for hanging out
Yeah,
and sharing your life and your perspective. It's good.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
This was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention you, Guy Fieri. I'm so sorry, but please don't feel left out. When you're done with this, go back and watch Guy Fieri. And hey, before you do that, like and subscribe so you can get some more great content. We've got some good stuff coming up, some good guests. And hey, would you ever want to come back
Sure.
and do one just macho solo?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great, right? See, we want that. Like and subscribe if you want that, all right? See you guys next week.
Bye.